US President Donald Trump announced a finalized trade deal with India following a call with PM Narendra Modi. The agreement reached after months of talks amid US tariffs of up to 50% on Indian exports, reduces US tariffs on Indian goods to 18% effective immediately. Trump posted on Truth Social that India has agreed to halt Russian oil imports, replacing them with more from the US and potentially Venezuela, and commit to buying over $500 billion in US energy, technology, agriculture, coal and other products. He claimed India would also drop tariffs and non-tariff barriers in US goods to zero, helping end the Ukraine war and boost bilateral ties. Modi confirmed on X that tariffs on made-in-India products would fall to 18%, thanking Trump and highlighting opportunities for the world's two largest democracies. The deal follows India's recent major trade agreement with the EU and comes as the US remains India's top single country trading partner. And now, battered by the budget 48 hours ago, the market swung violently the other way Tuesday morning after US President Donald Trump announced the long-pending India-US trade deal had been agreed. The Sensex opened over 3,600 points in the green to cross 85,000 after having closed Monday at 81,666.46, and the similarly bruised Nifty 50 gained 1,200 points from its Monday close of 25,088.40. At opening, all sectoral indices showed huge gains, with realty, auto, consumer durables, and IT among the big movers, up 4.47%, 3.78%, 3.69% and 3.4% respectively. India's stock markets have seen massive volatility over the past week, starting with the benchmark indices erasing overnight losses after a free trade agreement with the European Union. I have my guest joining me on the broadcast. I have Mr. Akash Jindal. He's an economist. Mr. Jindal, would you like to begin by simplifying these numbers for our viewers?
See, the numbers are very simple and very clear. Now, the US-India trade deal is a big win for India. Tariff has been reduced to 18%. What it means in simple terms is now we'll be exporting more, we'll be manufacturing more. Indian products are anyway considered quality products. There would be increment in our GDP. There would be increment in our forex reserves. Plus, we'll be able to increase the value of our rupee because rupee has been depreciating regularly against dollar, and there would be much more employment available in India. All these things are good for economy and the markets. See, already let me inform the viewers, the US had imposed tariffs on us, but post-tariffs, the quarter in which tariffs were imposed, we had 8.2% GDP growth numbers. So I would say tariffs have not impacted us that severely. We have been performing very well in spite of the tariffs. Tariffs were imposed in the month of August. In the month of November 2025, we have an export data which tells us our exports to US has increased by 22%, primarily in non-tariff products. So in spite of tariffs, we have been growing in exports. Now, what has been happening is World Bank has predicted 7.2% GDP growth for us for this 2025-26, and World Bank has spoken about our tax reforms, our demand and consumption. So Indian economy has been going strong. The problems have been with the US economy. The US economy, because of the tariffs, the economy had high inflation. US, the economy which was known to have almost nil inflation for many months and years, now the inflation is 2.7%, which is more than double that of India's CPI inflation. Plus US, the country which is being considered ideal country for going and working there by many people, that country is not able to give employment to its own people. Unemployment is 4.4%. So US has been suffering a lot because of these tariffs. So generally people do not actually understand that tariffs have not been imposed on India. but tariffs have been imposed by US on their own importers. So the products have become costlier for US own citizens. Now in US, labor costs are very high, and overnight US can't put factories to produce those products. So those products were becoming costly because they were anyway being imported from India. So for their consumers, for their citizens, inflation had increased. We have been exporting two sorts of products. One is which was the end product for the consumer. Secondly, those products which were raw material for industry. So industry also, the input cost for the industry increased, which in turn impacted their economy negatively. So now, as far as India is concerned, we have been concentrating on export diversification post this 50% tariff. We have done FTAs with many countries. We have done FTA with UK. We have done ties with New Zealand and other countries. And just 5-6 days ago, we have signed mother of all deals, which is being put as mother of all deals, India-EU trade deal, wherein we will be exporting hugely to EU. Post that, in our budget also, we have a lot of measures which are going to make India a strong manufacturing economy, which are going to increase the infrastructure allocation in India. And India is clearly poised to become a competitor of China as far as manufacturing is concerned, because China, for the past 10 years, Chinese economy has been not doing well. They are dealing with many problems like debt, real estate prices, many other problems. US itself, the economy is not in a good shape. US is the biggest economy. But for the past 18-19 years, this biggest economy is a deficit economy. Deficit economy means expenditure is higher, income is lesser. Around 2 years ago, US had to pass a debt ceiling law. In US, there is a concept that this much is the amount which the government can borrow at maximum. They had to borrow more than that, what they were permitted. And for that, the Congress had to, make an amendment so that they could borrow higher. So this is the position of US. Post-Russia-Ukraine war, post-start of Russia-Ukraine war also, US for 2 quarters was displaying negative GDP growth. So now US also was suffering because of tariffs, so they wanted to befriend India so that we could increase business with them, which was very important for US also, because US also knows, we also know that we and US have been the biggest trade partners prior to this tariff thing. Our export to US has been quite high. Plus, Indians in US are considered very friendly and positive and peaceful people. We enjoy a very good image. Since I have been talking to many people in US and Europe, we enjoy a very decent and good image. Plus, our Prime Minister Modi is respected throughout the world. And President Donald Trump has always said that Prime Minister Modi is a very good friend of his. So anyway, this is good for US, that now they have struck a deal with us, and it's a win-win situation. Now US also would get good products at economical prices, plus business and friendship between India and US is going to now increase and more, because if the business increases, a relationship also increases, and US also realizes that Indians have contributed a lot to US IT, US space program, US banking industry. So I think what has happened is clearly in the right direction, and what this would do is...
Mr. Jindal, please stay on with me. I'll come back to you. Now, the Indian rupee surged sharply in early trade on Tuesday, gaining over 1 rupee against the US dollar after Washington slashed tariffs on Indian goods from 50% to 18%. The rupee opened at 90.30 per dollar, strengthening by 119 paise from its previous close of 91.49. According to traders, the lower tariff makes India more attractive for global investors and could bring foreign investors back into the Indian markets. Gold and silver prices on the Multi-Commodity Exchange of India opened sharply higher on Tuesday, following gains in international bullion prices. MCX gold rate today for April futures contracts opened 2.78% higher at 1,48,000 per 10 grams, level as against its previous close of 1,41,669 level. The yellow metal price surged to a high of 1,49,996 level. MCX silver price for March futures contracts opened 4% higher at 2,45,711 per kg. as compared to its previous close of 2,36,261 level. MCX silver rate jumped nearly 9% to 2,57,480 level. I want to go back now to Mr. Akash Jindal. Mr. Jindal, a lot of numbers there, a lot of percentages. I'd request you again to simplify this, and what would you also like to say on this?
See, in simple terms, what I would say is, as far as gold and silver are concerned, gold, see, it has been increasing because, number one, it's being treated as a safe haven asset, it's being used for hedging, and because of geopolitical disturbances like the US-Iran issue, what happened between US and Greenland, what US did to Venezuela, because everybody knew that US is going to take some action against Venezuela, but nobody ever thought of the sort of action they actually took. Plus, Russia-Ukraine war is anyway going on. So, number one, because of safe haven asset buying and hedging, entities as well as individuals are buying gold. Number two, now as far as gold is concerned, many central banks are buying gold as a reserve for them, because earlier central banks throughout the world used to buy dollars, but now de-dollarization is happening. De-dollarization means relevance of dollars reducing across the world. So many countries are central banks, just equal to our RBI, they have been buying many quantity of gold as reserves. Plus what's happening is gold, the demand is increasing, the supply is not. Because the existing mines of gold, their extraction capability is being diminished and new mines are not being discovered. So a basic rule of economics says, if anything has higher demand and lesser supply, that amount is going to increase. So gold, if somebody wants to buy at these prices also, and target is long term, I don't think any problem in buying gold. For long term, one may buy gold. Secondly, there's one more thing which many people would like to know, that whether gold should be bought as jewelry or not. Of course, jewelry means that you have to shell out 10, 15, 20% as making charges, some for the other things also which go into gold, like mala and other things. But according to my organization, akashmil.in, buying gold jewelry also is a prudent idea. Why so? Because whenever you buy gold jewelry, you automatically stand to invest for long term. Because in India, we have an emotional attachment with our jewelry. So jewelry, whenever it's bought, is generally held on for 15, 20, 25 years, certain times passed on to generations. So the long-term buying, long-term holding is embedded when we buy jewelry. So I think buying jewelry also makes sense, because otherwise if you buy gold, if it appreciates, you may be tempted to sell it after 3 months or 6 months. Then we come to silver. Silver, of course, the main focus has been that silver, the demand has increased, demand for EVs, demand for solar, demand for defense. But there the question which my organization is asking is that has the demand for EVs increased thrice in 3 months? Because see, the number of EVs being sold in September and February, there is not that much change. So in silver what's happening is people are investing with a Me Too feeling that my neighbor has earned 2 lakh rupees, why have I been left behind? The left out feeling. That is very much there.
Mr. Jindal, I'll have to interrupt you. We're very short on time, but thank you so much for joining me on the broadcast. And with that, let's take a look at other trade deals that India has done and what exactly India gets out of it. So let me show you that, viewers. Now let's go to the trade deals that India has signed since January 25. July 25, India and UK signed the Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement. Duty-free access for 99% of exports to the UK. Aims to double bilateral trade to $102 billion by 2030. December 25, India and Oman signed the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement and duty-free access for 98 to 99.38% of exports to Oman. Supports textiles, gems and jewelry, engineering goods, food processing. December 25, India and New Zealand finalized a free trade agreement. Duty-free access for 100% of exports to New Zealand. Commitment for $20 billion investment in India by 2040 and aims to double bilateral trade in 5 years. January 26, India and European Union signed the Free Trade Agreement. Duty-free access for over 99% of Indian exports to the EU market. And immediate zero-duty access for 70.4% of tariff lines. Phase zero duty over 3 to 5 years for another 20 to 20.3% of lines. And this, of course, viewers, is an overall view of what kind of trade deals India has signed in the past. And I do have with me Major General Sudhakarji. He is a senior geopolitical and strategic defense expert. Major General Sudhakarji, welcome. And I'd like to begin with your opening comments on what we've just shared with our viewers.
Good afternoon, Vaishali. Thank you for taking me on phone ops. And I would start by saying that it's a remarkable turn of event which has taken place. Win-win for both US as also India. And I would go that extra mile to make a statement that finally the trade deal has come about on India's terms. This is very important because strategic autonomy is a central paradigm on which our foreign policy is being developed and progressed. So it has come about on the terms of India's national interest, but that should not become the central factor to take it forward. All I'm saying is the ink is yet to be etched on the page. It is yet to dry because we are having this turn of event with a partner who's unpredictable, unreliable, and the credibility has taken a bottom hit in past couple of months or say 1 year's time. So therefore, one has to be wary that it can be a flip-flop also. Be very careful. Optimism should not actually overshadow the pragmatism. Pragmatism is be prepared for the worst eventuality. And I'm glad and happy that our Honorable Prime Minister has actually commented in the social media in a very calibrated and sophisticated language, a simple expression, but trying to evade those complex navigation of the complexity by keeping them well away from the texted message. So therefore, it's a good turnaround, and let's see how it pans out. And in times ahead, perhaps we should expect something good thing happening. Otherwise, USA itself is going to isolate from all over the world, and it will feel the pain in the short, medium, and long term. Back to you, Vishal.
Major General Sudhakarji, now how significant, according to you, is the reported commitment to stop Russian oil imports in geopolitical terms? And what might it mean for India's long-standing strategic relationship with Russia?
Yeah, there are 3 points you have made, actually. Firstly, Trump has been making this statement time and again for past several months that India should stop buying oil from Russia. Actually, oil is not the crux. It is not the central issue. It is the payment that we are making to Russia in non-dollar currency. For example, till December 2025, from the time the war broke out between Russia and Ukraine, India has bought something worth around $135.7 to $140 billion worth of oil from Russia. We have made payment from 75 to 80 odd billion dollars in non-dollar currency. That's a huge percentage. When payments or transactions are made in non-dollar currency, that too by a country like India, and there are many countries who are doing the similar thing, carrying out international transactions in their domestic or the national currencies, that is, it is a strong departure from dollar as a reserve international currency. If that happens at the peak time, the dollar is to enjoy a dominance of 86% approximately. It came down to 54% during pandemic, and the experts say if the dominance of dollar as an international reserve currency goes down below 50%, well then the United States no longer can be called as a superpower or a declining power. It will be called as a decline power. So dollar is the main issue. That is why he is making this time and again, and I don't think India would be doing right thing to stop buying oil, because we have just signed a strategic privileged partnership agreement with Russia in the first week of December when Putin came here. In that, oil transaction or the trade on oil and gas is a very important factor which is appearing in that agreement. And
Major
in
General
that,
Sudhakarji, we're very short on time, so I'll have to interrupt you. But thank you so much for joining me on the broadcast. And now the Indian Rice Exporters Federation has expressed optimism over the proposed reduction in the US import tariffs on Indian goods to 18%, down from the earlier 25%. IREF has said that the federation expects this move to restore price parity with competing nations and significantly boost shipment volumes. According to IREF National President Prem Garg, the revised tariff structure would place India on par with competitors like Thailand and Pakistan, which currently face duties of approximately 19%. I have Shruti Dasgupta, Foreign Affairs expert, joining me. Shruti, what would you like to say on this?
Well, it's good news all around for most of, not just the Rice Federation, all Indian exporters would be very happy with this deal because it's at least 1% lower than their competitors. So it gives them the edge that they usually had in the US market. Beyond this, I also understand that there is still 1/10 of what India was supplying in terms of aluminium and steel that is still tariffed at 50%, and we do not have clarity whether that particular 50% tariff will come down because that's not something that happened now. India has been fighting for that particular tariff under Section 232, I believe it is called, under US National Security Act, and India has lodged a complaint with the WTO for this as well. So 1/10 of India's exports to US still continue to be under that umbrella of 50% tariffs. We have also, as of 2025, initiated a 25% reciprocatory tariff on US steel and aluminium. So although like the two tweets by the President of USA and the Prime Minister of India seem to set the mood for the markets today, seem to set the mood for the trade associations, there are finer nuances of the deals that we do not as yet know of. There has been a conversation where they're saying that there's going to be zero barrier tariffs from India, but that is just what Trump has said. There's no particular output available from the Indian side. I'll believe it when I see it in writing in black and white because Trump is prone to Trumpism, that is hyperbole, and he tends to say what he expects, not what he's actually getting on paper. So there is a discrepancy there. The Indian exporters, I believe the textile markets are responding very well. The Indian stock markets has responded very positively to the at least an off-ramp that is now being offered, and an off-ramp that will actually transition. It is not something in process. It's a transition that is going to happen, but the nuances, the finer details of it is not as yet known. Russian crude still is more than 30% of what Indian oil exports are part of. It is declining. It's peaked at 40%, but right now it's still 32 if I'm not wrong. The Venezuelan oil that Trump mentioned that India is going to be part of the Venezuelan oil adventure that he wants to showcase to the world as a victory. India was already dealing with Venezuelan oil. It peaked at I think 8 to 10% before 2019, where US sanction forced India out of the Venezuelan crude markets. So there is something, it is like you took it away, now we have an access back to it, we may go back to it. We have refineries that are capable of doing it. We have ONGC Videsh has, in terms of dividends and assets, stuck $1 billion in Venezuela. So we are hoping $1 billion. So this is a large amount of what India had invested in Venezuela. And we can go back to a lot of things that now there is a sort of off-ramp and normalization happening with both USA, Venezuela and India. So there are a larger conversation. Let's not go on the blanket of what these texts are saying. The markets are happy, the trade associations are happy. And while the EU FTA and the other FTAs that you spoke about earlier, they show that India is on the path of opening up to the world its manufacturing capabilities, and business as usual in India is going to progress, and we'll rush towards the third largest economy sooner than that was expected on the backs of the two deals that happened within this week. That is the EU trade deal, which gave USA the FOMO moment. That's why the announcements without actually a deal being signed. So their FOMO moment led to the conversation, the 30-minute conversation, and the declarations on social media. But I'm hoping that details of the devil in the details that we are all expecting to see come in black and white soon, and we can then comment further on whether it is actually good for India, or did we actually sign a deal with the devil as such, not just in details.
Interesting, Shruti. I'll come back to you. Now, industry and trade bodies across India have hailed the India-US trade deal. The Seafood Exporters Association of India has said that India's seafood exports to the US are expected to recover following months of declining shipments after Washington agreed to cut tariffs to 18% from 25%. Shruti, what do you have to say about the seafood exports?
Well, that was, the marine exports did suffer. There were, like, the textiles suffered, as I said, the marine exports suffered. The jewelry section, the gems and jewelries, they suffered. The rice export is very less because we contribute a very small margin to the basmati exports that is happening towards USA. So the impact was not as much in the rice association earlier, but the seafood market definitely did find itself having to deal with lesser markets to explore. We've corrected that with the EU. We've corrected that with going to the Mercosur. We've corrected that with going to the MENA market. There were many deals, as you've mentioned, before this US deal came through. These associations are happy because they now have not just USA, so not what they had before the sanctions came in full force, which I think happened in November, August and November. These were the two times when they were pushed through towards us. And so they've not had a very long time. It has not even been a full economic year since this entire operation of tariffs that has happened on India, the weaponization of tariffs on India, has it's not run its full 1 year course also. The reason is that they did face backlashes, but before it could impact their year-on-year yield, there has been a corrective course, and they have explored new markets thanks to the deals that have been happening all around the world. So not just for the US deal, because that is a set market, they knew where they're going. They're now going to be able to explore new markets. So this is good news all around, as I said. But again, the devil is in the detail. I'd like to see what is written in paper before I make a comment on whether we actually got the better of USA, or did the USA benefit from its weaponization of tariffs.
Or, you know, Shruti, on the surface, it seems Trump's played it well. But I'll come back to you. Now, according to reports, India has agreed to buy petroleum, defense goods, electronics, pharma and telecom products, as well as aircrafts from the US under the trade deal. US President Donald Trump announced a trade deal with India that slashes US tariffs on Indian goods to 18%. Reportedly, India has agreed to buy US goods to reduce the trade deficit that the US has with India. So, Shruti, as we were discussing, we've been harping about the 18%, but that comes with a lot of conditions that Trump's also imposed.
But not just this, like if we go back to Feb 2025, when PM Modi visited the White House and they had this giant photo op, there was this Mission 500 that we were talking about. And at that time, these exact same details were part of the deal with USA. So basically, we've just pressed the reset button as far as we are concerned, with an addition of USA's version of tariffs of 18%. I think we started off at 16 when it was initially declared to us, and now we're at 18. So not really a much of a loss, because the nations that we actually do compete with are higher. Indonesia, Vietnam, and Pakistan, Bangladesh, they're all facing higher tariffs, and they don't have this bag of deals with other nations, other markets. They don't have a deal with Australia, they don't have a deal with EU, they don't have a deal with Brazil, they don't have a deal with Venezuela, they don't have any of those deals on paper. So those nations are just trying to find a meeting grounds with the USA. India did find one. But we did not find one. Like, there's a larger conversation happening on social media that is saying that who bent the knee, whether it was PM Modi or USA. I think USA blinked. Although before we went into this conversation, you said, I think Trump did well in this. Not really, because the inflation was on rise.
No, Shruti, that was sarcastic. That was a sarcastic comment.
Oh, then I
yes,
get you.
Please go on. Yeah.
Then I get you, because the inflation's on the rise. In USA, they are suffering through the fact that they've put tariffs on nations that they want to do deals with. And with the EU deal, they were, as I said, in their FOMO moment, they were found alone in a corner. where India was open to a deal with them. We were never hostile, but we were never submissive towards their demands as the rest of the world has been. The point of example being Canada, they went and bent their knee and they kind of did the good deals, and then whenever Trump gets unhappy, they get slapped back with 100% or 150%. Same with China. He keeps fluctuating his numbers. Russia seems to, gets free. It doesn't get any tariff, but we're not competing with Russia in the US market at least. So we are happy with what is happening. As I've said before, the crude is still above 30% for Russia. We did at its peak deal with Venezuelan oil of 8 to 10%. If we go back to that and we reduce the Russian, we are still going back to a world where before tariffs or sanctions was applied to Venezuela. The Russian markets, of course, with the sanctions, we are getting a really good $10 discount per barrel that is happening for us as of now. But that is a conversation that that shows that it is going to need to be offset, right? The crude oil prices might be low, and we might be able to refine it and sell it to the world, but if we are sanctioned for using it and our companies are blacklisted for that, and the tankers that are passing these things, the shadow fleet that is operating gets targeted, then it becomes more expensive and less reliable. So there was always going to be a disconnect with the free reign that we had with the Russian crude. If we completely disconnect, and now I'm quoting Moody's report on this, if India actually decides to completely turn off the tap with the Russian crude, it is going to trigger a global crisis in crude oil. So expecting India to go zero was never going to happen. This is just, as I said, Trump doing his Trumpism. His expectation is at least that you're not going to thump the nose at it. But EU has signed a deal with India and they've not been able to impose the fact that Russian crude flows through India. So I don't think USA is going to be able to do it also. It is just, these statements that he puts out are just for his voter base. What we need to understand is there was never going to be, this is not going to be a forever long a roller coaster that we're going to ride on with the Russian crude. Once the Ukraine peace deal is signed, and I hope it is in the next few months, then Russia is going to have to rebuild its economy, and oil is going to be one of them. So this discount that we have as of now, the sanctions will go away and the prices will again surge. So there was always going to be a need for looking for diverse sources. Venezuela was an older source. We're going back to it. There we have assets worth $1 billion in only ONGC Videsh and a few other companies. So we're not doing what Trump wants to tell the world, that I got India to go to Venezuela, I got India to go get away from Russian crude, I got India to lower the tariff barriers. It has not happened anywhere. We still have the reciprocity 25% on aluminium and steel that India imposes on USA. USA is still putting 50% on India's aluminium and steel, and that is because of the national security bit. That's not going away as of now. We're still fighting that particular case since 2019. So that is still there. It is still going to be part of it. So a tenth of this particular deal is still going to be, trade is going to be not talked about. The other parts, like as I said, the gems and jewelry, the textile, the agricultural markets, they are going to be happy. I think we are going to do well by opening up our markets to a few of their agricultural products, like probably apples and walnuts and few. But this is not going to be a free run on GM products that India is very chary about. 40% of India's population depends on agriculture as a source of income. We cannot afford to open our agricultural market the way USA wants. We did not do it with EU either. So I don't think it is going to be exactly as how Trump projects it. And as I've said again and again, I'm looking forward to reading that document.
All right, Shruti. And with that, thank you so much for joining me on the broadcast. And now moving on. Now responding to opposition MPs raising the India-US trade agreement, Union Minister J.P. Nadda said the government would make a suo motu statement on the issue and hold a detailed discussion in Parliament. He accused the Congress and the India Alliance of showing impatience, saying the government is ready to give a full statement at the appropriate time, and that the opposition's reaction stems from frustration.
कल देर रात अमेरिका के राष्ट्रपति जी ने एक ट्वीट किया है जिसमें उन्होंने टैरिफ्स के बारे में प्रधानमंत्री जी को अवगत कराया और उन्होंने प्रधानमंत्री जी के बारे में एक सच्चे दोस्त के बारे में भी चर्चा की है उस ट्वीट में। उसके बाद आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने
It is not carried on your part. You want the government to.
शुक्रिया अदा किया।
Yes, sir. But the government is agreeing you are shouting. No. This is not good.
I have Arzu Seth joining me with more details. Arzu, what more can you tell us?
Well, yes, responding to the opposition MPs raising the U.S. trade deal, trade agreement in the Rajya Sabha, Union Minister J.P. Nadda has given the statement, and in fact, he said that late last night the U.S. President tweeted on tariffs and referred to PM Modi as a true friend. After this, the PM tweeted thanking the U.S. President, and on trade, the government will issue a suo statement on this trade deal and also hold a discussion on it when the government is ready to give a detailed statement. And this attitude of the Congress and the India Alliance is wrong, and it is their frustration which is speaking. This is what the J.P. Nadda has said, and we can clearly see the ruckus happening right now in the parliament. And after this, responding to the opposition MPs, this is what the J.P. Nadda has stated. Yes.
All right. Now, according to reports, Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal is returning to Delhi and is likely to make a statement in Parliament on the India-US trade deal today. The statement is expected amid opposition demands for clarity and a detailed discussion on the trade deal between the two nations. Sanjay Sharma is joining me with more details. Sanjay, what more can you tell us? All right, viewers. So this, of course, is the big breaking news that we're sharing with you at this point. Now, according to reports, Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal is returning to Delhi and is likely to make a statement in Parliament on the India-US trade deal today. The statement is expected amid opposition demands for clarity and a detailed discussion on the trade deal between the two nations. So this, of course, viewers, is a statement that everyone's really awaiting, which is on the big India-US trade deal that we've been discussing since morning. And the statement is expected amid opposition demands for clarity and a detailed discussion on the trade deal between the two nations. Now, there has been a lot of statements coming in from the opposition with regard to the trade deal, and a lot of criticism coming in from the opposition about this. And I have Anand Singh joining me with more details. Anand, of course, Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal is returning to Delhi and is likely to make a statement in Parliament on the India-US trade deal. What more can you tell us?
Yes, Vashali, look, the way in which U.S. President last night announced a trade deal with India, and even Prime Minister Narendra Modi to acknowledge the same. So clearly, the Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal is all set to make a statement in the Parliament on U.S.-India trade deal, as the tariffs, which were earlier 25% plus 25% of the additional tariff that was imposed on India, taking it to 50%. So clearly that has been brought down to 18%. So now Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal is all set to address the Parliament on this crucial trade deal with US. As just weeks ahead, we have seen that how India has also finalized a trade deal with the European Union. So clearly on this historic US trade deal, the Piyush Goyal, who is also the Commerce Minister in the government, is likely to make a statement in Parliament on the same. Back to you, Ashwini.
Right. Now, my colleague Sanjay Sharma has spoken to parliamentarians on the India-US